are welcome to Anchor Network, where you get first-hand information about things happening around you. And I appreciate every one of you who are subscribed to this channel. And if you have not subscribed, please press the red button and make sure you press the bell icon, because if you don't press the bell icon, you will not be notified anytime we post news, because we want you to get the news as soon as they come, as fast as they come. So press the bell icon so that you'll be notified anytime. The news we have for you now, you'll be glad that you are aware of it. Stay tuned.
If you are an observer, you should come to a definitive conclusion. Don't be dodgy about it. Don't run away from that fact. Because we have 120,000 polling units across the country. So, in all the reports, I don't think they discussed more than, at most, 500 polling units. If they observed certain anomalies, it could not have been more than 500 or 1,000 polling units. Now, if you do, hold on, if you do observe anomalies in those polling units, how does that substantially affect results coming from 120,000 polling units? So, it is not enough for you to discuss the anomalies. They must come and they must discuss the overall results coming from the entire country, and whether it did in fact reflect the riches of that, which is what of course we want to know, because there are problems in the United States elections, there are problems in Europe, there were problems in the UK when they held their elections recently. So for Christ's sake, we expect such detailed analysis to come to a definitive conclusion about the overall results of the election.
The presidency has rejected the final report of the European Union Observer Mission on the 2019 general elections, which stated that the elections won by President Muhammadu Buhari and his All Progressives Congress weren't transparent and were marred by violence and harassment of voters. The EU Observer Mission presented the report on the February 23rd and March 9th presidential and governorship elections on Saturday, June 15, 2019 at the Transcorp Hilton Hotels in Abuja. The elections became increasingly marred by violence and intimidation, with the role of the security agencies becoming more contentious as the process progressed, the EU observers said. This damaged the integrity of the electoral process and may deter future participation, the observer group said. President Muhammadu Buhari has secured a second four-year term in the election after he was declared by the Independent National Electoral Commission (Inec) to have defeated his major rival and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, at the poll. The election, according to the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, recorded no fewer than 58 deaths due to voting-related violence. Reacting on Saturday night, Mr. Festus Keyamo, who was the Director of Strategic Communications of the Buhari Presidential Campaign Organization, faulted the EU observers' report. And meanwhile, the presidency has welcomed the report of the European Union on the 2019 general elections in Nigeria, but noted that the Union did not question the outcome of the election. However, in a statement issued in Abuja on Saturday by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Publicity, following the release of EU's final report on the election, he promised that the government will analyze it fully and act on the recommendations. He said, thankfully, EU did not question the results of the presidential election. This is further proof that the polls reflected the overall will of Nigerians and that the world is solidly behind the election of President Muhammadu Buhari for a second term. The presidency noted that the EU observers had been invited to the country by Independent National Commission (INEC) and welcomed the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. It maintained that this was a clear indication of the administration's good intentions, commitment to pure democratic process, and desire to improve for the next elections. The statement observed that the EU had noted in their report that there were marked improvements from previous elections, although stating that more work needed to be done. The administration of President Buhari will work with all Nigerian citizens, state institutions, parties, civil society, the media and other experts to make sure that the improvements recommended by the EU are implemented and that these areas of concern are addressed. It is noteworthy that INEC is in receipt of a number of recommendations that form a part of the EU report. The presidency assures that the Commission is in safe hands and happy they are currently engaged in root and branch reviews of the 2019 general elections and will impute lessons learned into its recommendations for electoral and constitutional reforms. We believe that the commission conducted a good election and will continue to improve on its process and procedures. While it is regretted that the elections in a few parts of the country witnessed some violence, among other shortcomings highlighted by the EU, we note, however, that none of these issues affected the overall outcome of the elections. Maria Arena, EU chief observer, while submitting the report to Inec chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu in Abuja, said the union would on Saturday make public the report of its monitoring of the elections. The European Union Election Observation Mission (EU EOM) has submitted its findings and recommendations on the 2019 general elections to the Independent National Electoral Commission (Inec). Maria Arena, EU chief observer, while submitting the report to Inec official Professor Mahmoud Yakubu in Abuja, said the union would on Saturday make public the reports of its monitoring of the elections. Maria Arena, who did not disclose the content of the report, said that the submission would be made open to journalists and members of the public to seek clarifications on the issues raised in the report. The EU chief observer said that the union had been part of Nigeria's electoral process since 1999. The union deployed 73 observers to 223 polling units and 81 collation centers in 22 states for the 2019 general elections. Receiving the report, Inec chairman also noted that the EU had been part of Nigeria's steady progress towards democratic consolidation since 1999. The Inec chairman said that the commission had adopted the EU recommendations on previous elections. Yakubu further said that the recommendations included simultaneous accreditation and voting processes on election day, adding that it was first used for the 2015 Bayelsa governorship election and subsequent elections in the country. He said the observations and recommendations of the Union Election Observed Mission to the 2015 general elections were particularly useful. Yakubu said the recommendations were used for the design of some important proposals for reforming the electoral legal framework and improving the electoral processes and procedures. The INEC chairman pledged that the commission would look into the recommendations of the report. He gave the assurance that the recommendations on 2019 elections would form the benchmarks in the reform to be submitted to the National Assembly. Every election in any democracy around the world is work in progress. We therefore look forward to the full EU EOM reports and recommendations on the elections. We are confident that there will be useful lessons for the commissions as we prepare for future elections. Indeed, the report is coming at the right time as it will feed into our ongoing review of the conduct of the elections. Let me assure you that the Commission will again quickly focus attention on the electoral legal framework in addition to several other areas of reform. We will study in detail all your recommendations as part of our ongoing internal review of the 2019 general elections, which we hope to conclude in the next 2 months, he concluded. The INEC chairman commended the EU for its interest in Nigeria's democratic process. EU cast aspersion on Buhari's re-election, says presidential poll not transparent. The EU pointed out that the February 23rd and March 2nd, 2019 general elections were not transparent and were marred by violence, harassment, and intimidation. The European Union observers have said the 2019 presidential election that returned President Muhammadu Buhari to power was not transparent. The EU pointed out that the February 23rd and March 2nd, 2019 general elections were not transparent and were marred by violence, harassment, and intimidation. These elements, the observers said, seriously damaged the integrity of the elections conducted under the watch of Buhari's All Progressives Congress. The election became increasingly marred by violence and intimidation, with the role of the security agencies becoming more contentious as the process progressed. The EU observers said on Saturday in Abuja in their final reports on the elections. Not only that were the elections not transparent, the EU observers added, this damaged the integrity of the electoral process and may deter future participation. The election gave Buhari 76 a second 4-year term with 56% of the vote, while Atiku Abubakar, a former vice president and candidate of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, came second with 41%. The ruling party also won a majority of parliamentary seats. At least 58 people, including election officials, were killed in voting-related violence, according to the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, a coalition of civic groups that monitored the vote. Abubakar and the opposition PDP have filed a court petition challenging the presidential election outcome, arguing he would have won but for rigged voting in Buhari's favor. We've heard from Festus Keyamo and we've heard from Garba Shehu. The two of them, they are saying two different things. I would like you guys to ponder upon these two characters, the two people working for the government, working for the president, and the EU report. Let's dissect the whole thing together. Thank you very much. Bye.